Welcome, everyone, to our weekly HDI Local Chapters live stream show. Now, today's show is brought to you by Robert Half Technology, who is our live stream sponsor, and they're a leading provider of technology professionals needed to build, deploy, and operate technology in the cloud and the digital world. And they do this by placing highly skilled IT professionals on a contract, on a project, or a full-time basis. So you can browse available candidates, you can search for jobs, and you can access additional valuable information on hiring and career insights by going to roberthalf.com/technology. And it's on the screen above me. All right, and speaking of Robert Half Technology, today we welcome back Robert Half's very own Zach Jiru. Zach, I'm going to just do a quick introduction because people can go back to episode 19 if they really want the full thing. But you're currently a member of HDI, a vice president of the Sacramento, California chapter. And you're also, is this still correct? You're the director of technology of the technology division at Robert Half? Still good? All right. Still good? Right. So anyway, and you partner with companies and clients all throughout the Central Valley, right? So welcome to the show, Zach. Everybody can see you now and hear you since I forgot to hit the button a few seconds ago. All right,
no problem.
So because this is our career corner with our sponsor Robert Half, we got to get right into this so that we're going to go over the 15-minute snackable segment that we've coined from Robert Half. I think it was Julie that told us that. But anyway, so Zach, I understand that Robert Half recently did a survey, and it showed that 1 in 3 remote workers may quit if they're required to return to the office full time. So I want to dive into that topic pretty much the entire show. So
Sure.
Can you tell the audience a little bit about this survey?
Sure. I personally, I was actually a little surprised by that when the statistics came out. So yeah, we did a survey. It's a nationwide survey, and it was over 1,000 respondents. And the good thing about the survey was we were looking at employees of various levels. So, the people that were responding, don't think of them all as, entry level or, hey, I just got this job and, it's been remote. So if I'm asked to go into the office full time, no thanks. It was various levels. And yeah, when it came back, if employees were asked to return back to the office full time, 1 out of 3 of them would, think about looking for another job.
Well, I have to say I'm not one of those 3. I may be the number 2 of those 3 where I would really like to not have to go back, or at least not full time. So maybe the other 2 are in that similar boat. I'm sure that I actually have heard some people would like to really get back to the office full time, and that's awesome. And here's the thing: my organization did a survey about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we had kind of similar results. So I know that sometimes there's an issue depending on what your job is. Like, I know a few of my people would like to work remotely 4 or more days a week, and they really their job when we get back to things is mostly in the office. So that's going to be interesting. But so tell us, what do employees want for their ideal work environment when we go back to the office, or when things return to quote normal?
Right. Whatever normal is going to look like, right? Moving forward. So to sum that up, really the overwhelming response that we've gotten is flexibility. And I think that's where you're able to see the response from that survey is, look, if people are hardlining, 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, you got to be back in the office. There's a lot of people that are going to look elsewhere. Now, companies that are more flexible, and I mean, we've already seen it as people have started to return back to work on a hybrid basis. That's really the direction we've seen a lot of places going. I was actually, when we were going over the statistics, and I was actually get prepared to talk to you, I was thinking to myself, I don't know if you've ever heard it about building a habit, right? It takes you 21 days, or a lot of people bring that. Well, imagine having that habit form over 14 months.
Yeah.
And then being told, we were throwing around June 1st, while we were talking quite a bit, but just picking a day and just saying, hey, for the last 14 months, you've worked remote, but hey, starting June 1st or whatever your day is, 5 days a week, go back into the office. A lot of companies got to keep in mind over the last year,
Yeah.
so much in people's lives have changed. People have moved, people have had kids, kids are, you know, doing homeschool. So they have to take those factors in mind. So when you're talking about re-entering the workforce or bringing people back to the office, flexibility has to be number one, top of mind.
Yeah, and I agree with you because like now where I work, I shouldn't say worked. I'm talking past tense. Where I work, they were pretty hardline, not really in favor of remote working. For the most part, there's some folks that can, but we're we our business is students and things like that. But they have come up with a plan to transition back to the office, and they're literally doing a 12 to 13 month transition plan.
Sure.
I guess their thought was to counteract the 13 to 14 month getting into this, because you're right. Like I said, I wasn't one of those three. However, there's that big but. Everything before but's BS, so I say however instead, right? However, I know when I pre-COVID, my commute is an hour and a half each way, and includes two forms of public transportation, both to and from.
Yeah,
So I'm sitting there going, I'm not sure I'm excited about an hour and a half commute each way. That's 3 hours out of an 8 to 10 hour
exactly.
workday that, that I'm going to spend and that doesn't include the 8 to 10 hours. That's additional. So I really, when I was thinking about going back to the office, I went, wow, I spend 12 hours a day involved either going to work, at work, or coming back from work. And that's a long time. So, you know, what other things? I mean, we're talking about transition back to the office. What are some of the things that employers need to do as well for transitioning?
Yeah, and I just want to hit your point one more time too. So it's not just the time, but imagine, somebody that has to travel. I mean, you're taking public transportation, you have an hour and a half, commute. Think of somebody that's just simply driving, half hour, 45 minutes
Yeah,
to and from work, the gas. So they've gotten used to, receiving a paycheck and having these expenses. And now all of a sudden they need to refactor in the the cost of gas, which I don't know
right
about where
now
you're
it's
at,
like
but has
crazy.
skyrocketed
Yeah, yeah,
for us. So that's going to be another hit that you're asking employees to take day one.
right.
So I just wanted to make that point because
Well,
I
and
thought about it
yeah,
driving to the office right now.
well, yeah, and I'll tell you, I agree with you because I don't know about a lot of other places, but I'm working in a for a an organization that took a pretty big hit over the last for education, and our raises over the last 2 years was not well. We didn't get one last year, and
Yeah,
this year's going to be so. Going from like you said, like a paycheck where I'm used to being at home, and now I've got to pay. I don't know what I'll tell you right here. It's $3.30 a gallon out here, and we normally are like a lot cheaper than you out there. Like normally gas, if it's 250, we're screaming, and now we're up at
yeah.
330. That is a pay cut,
I
quite
think we're
frankly.
over 4.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
now.
just saying, but it's a
Yeah,
pay cut, and regardless of how you look
exactly,
at it, yeah.
exactly.
You
So
know,
I mean, on top of that, though, I
yep,
think employers are starting to take a look at some of those factors. So where they may not be able to change immediately, like bonuses and compensation, we have seen kind of maneuvering of perks, benefits. They're taking a look at it a different way, right?
right,
So um, we've seen a lot of companies implement the idea of windowed work. So instead of a traditional, 8 to 5,
right,
having that flexibility. Hey, I need to take my kids to school at 8, so I need to start at 8:30, or I need to start at 9, and I need to pick the kids up, so I need to take a later lunch, or having that adjustment.
yeah,
Um, so they're taking that into account. And then if there is a hybrid workforce or a fully remote workforce that's going to stay in place, supplying employees with the tools that they need at home to be successful, basically setting up a remote workspace,
well,
but providing it for
yeah,
them.
and you said a key word there for me, hybrid. I want to unpack that a little bit. We talked about some benefits of the being remote and maybe some challenges of going back full time. But let's talk about the benefits and challenges of hybrid. You said one thing there. The challenge for me would be the hybrid work structure and having an office, because technically now I'm thinking I need to have two offices, which
Yep.
technically I do because I'm going in one or more days a week right now. So I have to have an entire setup at work and an entire setup at home. What other challenges or maybe even benefits, the benefits and challenges of hybrid versus strictly remote or strictly in the office?
Well, I mean, if we're going to hit the benefits, I think real quick, we can go back to that study, right?
Yeah.
If you're open to hybrid, chances of you retaining those employees is much higher, right? You bring them back to the office, you run the fear of losing 1 out of 3 of them, right? According to the study.
Right. And
If you're open,
that's expensive to replace people. I mean,
oh, it's
you all have got studies on that yourself. So yeah,
absolutely.
that's crazy. Yep.
So I mean, right there, just being able to retain, the talent that you have, that's a huge. But you also they've been in that routine, so you have that continuity. They're in a routine. You can kind of keep the production up at a certain level. You've got to see what they've been able to do over the last 13 14 months when you've gone remote. So you're able to continue to do that. Also, just overall, businesses overall have been able to shrink, like, I guess the best way to put it is real estate cost, right? Rent. Yeah. What is your physical footprint? Well, if you have less people in the office, you don't need that big of an office, right? So we've seen those changes. I know Robert Half itself has started to make those types of changes as well, just because of the situation we're in with remote and hybrid work. But it doesn't come with its lack of challenges either, right? I mean, being remote, I know we promote a certain culture. I'm sure at the university, just being there and being around students and events, and you kind of have that buzz. We had that here when we were in the office, right? That camaraderie, that being able to stand up and talk to somebody, or go ask them if they have a question. Now I need to ring them on my computer and hope that they answer. So that culture can definitely take a hit. The other thing that we get asked about is, compliance. What is the HR factor and the compliance look like in terms of a hybrid workforce? Yeah. And I think right now that is kind of fluid, right? Because we're not sure what 100% what that's going to look like moving forward, and how do those conversations take place? So I mean,
so I want to step in there. I want to put my performance management hat on that I do presentations and speaking on. I want any of you HR people or any of you big bosses out there listening, here's something to remember about the remote workforce versus the as we like to coin it, butts in chairs workforce. Be careful when you're thinking about how to monitor and see what your remote workforce is doing, because the assumption I see a lot of leaders make, organizations, mine included, is if they're in the office and their butts in their chair, I know they're working. And if they're remote, I don't know that they're really working. When we all know that just because your butt's in that chair at work doesn't mean you're always working either. So you got to think about like how you're going to monitor and make sure that all of your folks are doing what they need to do, not just the remote people. So sorry about that. I had to go on that rant there.
No, I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, if you got to question employees that have been doing the job, I mean, you got to take a look at the culture that you fostered, right?
Yes.
There should be that trust already built in. So,
absolutely.
Where I see it as a hindrance is onboarding. That new hire training, that introduction to the actual culture, right? The folks that I've worked with here, I've been lucky ever since I started. It's the same people, right? So we've built that up over years and years. But I would say it'd be tough if I just started in the last few months to take that step and just be seeing people on a computer screen. I can see where that can definitely take a hit.
Yeah, and like I shared with you, I think a little bit, like where I work, some of my employees are hardware repair techs, and they rebuild machines, and that's not exactly easy to do for a new employee onboarding if everybody's remote. We we have a policy. We don't take our customers' machines home with us to work on. We go to the office, and we have like one person every day goes in to their office to work on things. And so that's kind of challenging when you're trying to set up your phone behind you so that the tech that's helping you remotely can see what you're doing. That's kind of crazy. So, is there any tips that you have for transitioning to the hybrid work structure?
Yeah, we kind of hit on it before, but companies that are over communicating seem to be doing better. That's a lot of employees are asking that why question, right? Instead of just being told, this is what we're doing or this is the direction, but really emphasizing the why behind it. I think that's super important. And then as much as possible, keep the normal routine normal, I would say, right? If you were in the office and you had meetings at 8 o'clock or, at the end of the day, then have your meeting at 8 o'clock or have it at the end of the day, so that people they're used to that, right? So you have that semblance of team. But also,
go ahead.
I was going to say, if you're doing that hybrid piece, you can't isolate the people that are remote and just have those meetings with the folks that are in person. You really need to bring everyone together as much as possible so that, people don't feel like they're isolated or, they're kind of shunned because they're not the ones back in the office yet.
Right.
So if you're gonna be a team, you need to act like the team.
So I have the follow up to that is, what tips would you have for the employees that are like transitioning to a hybrid work structure? Not just the employer, but any tips for employees?
Yeah, I think you definitely gotta don't be afraid to ask questions, right? Where normally we would, again, if I was in the office, I had a concern, I know who to go to.
Right.
I think when we're sitting remote, and a situation comes up, it might be more of a, well, nobody's here for me to ask. So you got to stay vocal, I think. And then I would say, kind of on a personal note, or at least on a, this is what I've seen be successful here amongst ourselves, is you got to celebrate the little things, because it's, it can feel like you're all alone when you're sitting remotely. And, even when it's a little victory or, it feels like you guys accomplished something, I like to just find someone and call them on, Teams, or we put it in a group chat and just announce it. And, just like we would normally do in the office. I would recommend that.
And here's what I'll say too. I'll say, like, for those of you that heard me griping, not really griping, but kind of saying about my hour-and-a-half commute, whether you're driving or public transportation, prepare yourself. Like, I know what I'm doing now that I have to drive in, because right now I'm driving all the way to campus because parking is a lot more plentiful. Yeah. There than what it was, and traffic isn't nearly, well, it's not nearly as bad, at least in the morning it's not. But what I've done is I got my phone loaded up with podcasts and things. I mean, and you can listen to this show while you're on your way. We've got a few folks that in the HDI community that are doing podcasts. So I'm planning on, like, if I'm doing public transportation, not driving, I have my YouTube videos and my, different things, and my, LinkedIn Learning type things. So that's a good thing to do it. So Zach, we talked about a lot of things today, and at the top of the show, we talked about 1 in 3 people are going to say, that's it, I'm out of here if I got to come back to work. What are some of the tips for employers that you'd give to motivate staff to stay and not jump ship for these reasons?
So, I mean, first and foremost, I would say you want the people that you want to stay, you have to pay them well. And the reason why I bring that up first is because you're not competing in your local market anymore. The way companies are set up, it is going more and more remote. And again, I'm in California, so we'll just use that as an example. But you're not just competing with California companies. We have candidates that are getting reached out to across the country for remote positions, and they're paying them California prices.
And Zach, the funny thing is, because to prep for the show, I did a little bit of research. We'll leave it at that. And I looked like it's not just like help desk positions. I'm actually seeing like directors and executive levels that are remote as well.
Yeah, manager level individuals, managing help desks, assisting MSPs across the country, setting up their own teams. All levels at this point are able to do remote work and are being offered those positions. So the people you want to stay, you have to pay them well. The other thing to keep in mind is stay flexible. Look at your employee wellness. What does that look like? Are you asking employees, what's important to them? Is it that flexibility to, drop kids off, pick kids up? Is it the commute? Are there specific days where they're, open to coming into the office, or are you dictating to them that they need to be there every Tuesday and Thursday, where maybe those are the two worst days? Are you having those conversations? So I think if you're able to hit those types of things, or at least those, 3 things, the chances of employees staying are much higher. That, and if you're just open to a hybrid workforce, just the statistics say,
I think that
employees are wanting to stay.
That 1 in 3 may go down a little bit if you're willing to do at least that, right? All right. Well, Zach, we have actually, it's been we've gone over time, but it's been awesome. And I want to, before we call it a show, I want to ask you, have any final thoughts to share with the audience on the topic?
Yeah, the one thing I did want to bring up, employees and employers, I would stay on top of your technology. From an employer standpoint, make sure you're providing your employees with the necessary tools for them to be successful. If you're expecting a certain level of production, are you providing them tools to be successful? And the same thing for the employees. If you don't have what you need, you got to be vocal about it. And I can tell you firsthand, you got to complain in order to get what you want, right? There's not a lot of mind readers out there. So make sure that you're sharing. That goes back to, again, over communicate.
Yeah.
So if you're an employer, ask.
I was gonna say, if you're an employer, make sure you ask those questions and don't I always train when I was a scout leader, I'd say, don't let the people ask you why. Give it to them up front. Tell them at least, or ask them the question. So yeah, I love it. Well, Zach, we are at the end of the show.
It's so quick.
I know, it's crazy, and it just goes so. And we've actually gone almost 10 minutes over. It's been almost 25 minutes, and it seems like it goes so darn fast, especially considering this topic was just so relevant to the time and what a lot of people are thinking about right now. So again, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank the audience for sticking with us. If you stuck around this long, love you. And just remember to follow us on Twitch and on YouTube. Follow #HDILocal. Zach, thank you for being on the show, and we'll see everybody next week.